The fate of 17 million beneficiaries hangs in the balance as the Constitutional Court reserved its judgment in the SASSA CPS contract case. Noting that it is too late for negotiations, all parties demanded an interim extension of the CPS contract, but under judicial supervision. SASSA and the Department of Social Development say they welcome the judicial oversight and seek permission for an 18-month interim deal with CPS as there are no other options available. SASSA has requested the court for permission to be granted an 18-month interim deal with CPS as there are no other options available. Black Sash had approached the Constitutional Court seeking judicial overview of the new contract.
The Minister and SASSA accept that the court may reinstate its supervision and adapt it to meet the exigencies of the situation. The court imposes a new contract on SASSA and CPS for a period of 18 months. I'll return to the basis for that period in a moment, which period may be varied by the court on application by SASSA or CPS, or alternatively, that the court orders that CPS continues to render services on the same terms as the existing contract for 18 months.
Black Sash had approached the court seeking judicial overview of the new contract. Advocate Jeff Butlander for Black Sash says Social Development Minister Batabile Dlamini has failed to exercise her duties. Black Sash sought an order for the parties involved to continue the CPS contract for about 6 months. Freedom Under Law too sought a court-supervised interim contract with no relaxation in the benefit clause. They said a one-year contract will ensure that legality is restored. South African Post Office threw its hat in the ring, asserting they are ready and capable to take over the grants payments. They said they can deliver within a month and do better than CPS. We're joined now in studio by political analyst Tsepo Khadima. A very good morning to you, Mr. Khadima. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, how do you foresee the coming days with clouds hovering over the SASSA grants?
The next few days are going to be very troubling, I think, days of anxiety for the 17 or so million beneficiaries who don't really know for sure that come the 1st of April, they'll be able to receive their grants. And the proceedings in court today, unfortunately, did not leave us in any more clearer position as to whether indeed come the 1st of April, the grants would have been paid. So I think everyone quite correctly is anxiously waiting for the Constitutional Court to make a finding on a very difficult matter, because the various parties that appeared before court today had varying prayers. And it will be a very difficult task for the court to have to reconcile all those prayers and order a just and equitable finding, or rather, or give a just and equitable order. So I think quite correctly, we all should be, waiting with anticipation, but at the same time with anxiety.
And what are the options before the government?
The first option that should have been considered by the state, and that is in terms of all the state organs, including SASSA, the South African Post Office, and their line ministries, should have been to really look at bringing this function of paying out the social grants in-house to be managed by the state. It is clear now, or should have been clear to all, that to contract this out to a private enterprise is certainly not the solution. It is not cost efficient. And at the same time, it's got the difficulties that we are seeing now, whereby the costs are even going to go higher, and that many other entities seemingly are not interested in doing it. But it remains the primary duty of the state, and the state had taken corrective measures by establishing SASSA. So SASSA, which is an organ of state, of statute rather, should ordinarily by now have had the capacity, failing which they should have called upon other state organs, and more specifically in this case, the South African Post Office with its subsidiary Post Bank.
Well, looking now at the Treasury, what options do they have before them?
National Treasury, their hands are tied to the extent that they can only approve a deviation from the procurement rules as encompassed in PFMA only if, as and when they are approached, so to speak. And we know that there is an interministerial, which somewhat maybe has complicated matters for them. But one would expect that I think they fully appreciate the situation, and they should not unreasonably withhold any request to deviate. That is in the event that SASSA still has to go and engage or procure the payment of services with an outside party. But my own view is that where things are now, there should have been a directive, at least from the president, that the South African Post Office option be completely or be considered in detail, and to ensure that everything else is done to ensure that it does have the capacity to be able to pay the social grants within the month period that they have gone to court and asserted that indeed they can do this within a month from being appointed.
What are SASSA's options currently?
SASSA, it would appear to me that with the current leadership or the senior management that they have, they are totally incapable. So there has to be a complete overhaul to bring in people who are managerial experts, who are technical experts, to really be at the helm of SASSA to ensure that they can be able to carry out the functions and the duties of paying out social grants as so empowered or as so required in terms of the appropriate law that governs SASSA. And unless and such time that there is new management or new leadership at SASSA, is unfortunately a zero-sum game that we will continue to see these uncertainties or them wanting to contract at a really a less cost-efficient solution as they have already suggested of going with CPS.
Well, thank you very much. That was Tsepo Khadim, a political analyst. Thank you very much there for your insight. Well, moving along to other stories this morning, the question is, will the Constitutional Court prioritize the grant distribution over the legality of the contract? And CPS2 does not seem to be blinking and has chosen to flex muscles in the time of crisis. Well, here are the options that the ConCourt is likely to look at. Has been asked to extend a contract that they themselves declared invalid and therefore unlawful. Take an overreach position in the matter. Grant the contract to CPS for a short term without profits. And here are the demands put forth by the agency itself. They seek a legal contract and say it won't pay 11 billion rands at the end of March in the absence of a deal. The contract must be finalized within the next 2 days, as it will take 12 days for the disbursal. It wants a hike in payments, citing an adjustment to inflation. CPS also wants a lump sum payment per month instead of per beneficiary. This means their payment remains the same even if the number of beneficiaries goes down in the process of a handover to another agency.
We wanted to be paid a fixed fee per month. Okay, why? Because as SASSA starts taking over from us, we want to give them the flexibility when they're going to take over and how many people they're going to take over at any point in time. Now, what we can't do is to continue to keep our infrastructure and our technology running, and then instead of 10 million beneficiaries, we pay 9 and then 8 and 7 and then 6 and then 5 and 4, 3 and 2 and 1. Because it will get to a stage very quickly where our contract becomes a loss-making contract and not profitable. And the quicker SASSA then takes over, the more money they're going to save. We believe that the Minister of Finance might have been ill-informed by his people, because we have been doing this, following this particular standard of 12 days for the last 60 months, for the last 5 years. Now, I'm sure that if he asks his people, they will tell him that they do not transfer the money 3 days before, but they transfer the money 12 days before. It takes approximately 12 working days from the time that SASSA says to Treasury, let's pull the trigger and let's start the money transfers, before we are able to ensure that that money will reflect in beneficiaries' accounts.
What they then go on to say is, as we commence the closing down of CPS, exactly in accordance with what they claimed about liquidation, our service levels will gradually approach those stipulated in the service level agreement due to the reallocation of CPS staff. And then they say this: we hope this return, in inverted commas, to standard service levels will not cause any major disturbance or create any unwarranted burdens for beneficiaries. So they're basically saying we're going to start tailoring down our services, and we hope, but don't assure or say, but rest assured beneficiaries are safe. They say we hope it won't cause major disturbances. Again, there is an implicit threat that rests within that sentence.
And so the Black Sash brought this application for 4 purposes. First, to ensure that there is effective oversight in respect of payment of the grants after the 31st of March, the immediate crisis. Second, to ensure that the present intolerable situation does not again arise when we come to the end of whatever contract is now concluded. Third, to ensure that CPS is held to its constitutional obligations. And fourth, to protect beneficiaries against the abuse of their personal information. We submit that if the Minister's claim that she knew nothing before October 2016 is to be accepted, that itself demonstrates that she cannot be relied upon to oversee the work of SASSA going forward, because for 6 months she didn't find out what was happening. We submit that the court's power to do this arises from a number of considerations. Firstly, there has been a breach of the Constitution up till now, a serious breach. Thirdly, there is the imminent threat of a further serious breach. Thirdly, this court would not have discharged its supervisory jurisdiction in the All-Pay case if it had known the facts, if it had not been brought under the misapprehension that SASSA was going to take over the contract and do so lawfully. And so the difficulty we have going forward is that none of us with respect can have any confidence that either the Minister or SASSA will not give us a repeat dose of this treatment next time around. There's nothing in the papers which gives any basis for confidence that we won't be in the same position at the end of the next contract.